Peace. In the name of Allah, I'm Aubrey Muhammad. I pray that everyone is well. Hemsptead family, friends, and believers, welcome to my live session. Growing up in Hempstead, this is the early to mid 80s. In the menu today is just some quick grill cheese toast. You know, let me get right into it because I'm late. It's 9:30. So I'm going to try to get this done before an hour, maybe 50 minutes. I hope y'all Sunday was well. It was too cold out, y'all. Alhamdulillah. Let me get right into it. Now, as you know, this is going to be grilled cheese toast. Normally I do cheese toast in a toaster oven too. You can do that fast with a roll, your favorite bread. You see, this is half of a Kaiser roll. Most of the time I use whole wheat rolls, even bagels, any thick bread. I like thick breads. It's just like the quick pizza. It's just like the double grilled cheese. Same concepts. I'm gonna do it on the grill because you'll see what I do. I'm gonna just take this open half a roll, this nice Kaiser roll. Whole wheat is better. I didn't have it. And I'm gonna put on a seasoned grill there and let that sit there. Toast a little on the open face of that cut half. Matter of fact, I'll even turn that up a little just to speed it up, because it has to be just lightly toasted, because all the toasting and cooking is going to be done on this griddle. I'm going to take once it toasts a little light brown on that side, I'm going to turn it on the opposite side, put on the cheese, let it melt a little. Then I'm going to finish it off by flipping it over and grilling this mozzarella and cheddar cheese mix. This is regular, medium cheddar, and sharp with mozzarella. You see that's the mozzarella here, and I seasoned it with salt and pepper. You could put a little red pepper flake in there, and even a little herb if you want. A little thyme, rosemary, parsley, anything goes good with this. It's regular toast with some coffee. So let's get that going. And as you know, last week I was doing a Facebook Live, and what happened? Facebook cut off the live because I was I got a notice that said you're going against the community standards, your audio is something like that. So I went back on. And as I went back on, as you know, I said, family, I got a warning. And then as I went through the second one, the audio dropped. It dropped my audio. I don't know what happened. So I pieced it together, and I'll continue now. And I'm going to wait till it warms up. I'll go back towards maybe the heights, the terrace, something like that. You know what I'm saying? If it warms up outside, because it's too cold. For real, man. I'm out standing that cold for an hour. I can stand it for about an hour, but that's it. Yeah, that's typing. Now back in where I left off, where I remember was I was talking about the 80s. What was going on in the 80s? I was a little young hip-hop b-boy, little wild guy in the street. We was hanging out. We had little posses. And mainly for me, that was all over Hempstead. I was known, you know, on the hills, in the heights, and terrace. You know, I wasn't a popular guy. I wasn't out there because I was quiet. You know what I'm saying? But if you knew me, I was wild. I was one of them introverts who was quiet, but around friends, we break loose. It's on. I was wild when you get to know me. That's where a lot of people are. And what happened in the 80s? I left off I was in front of the Madison Monroes, how those were luxury apartments. And many of us had left the projects. My friends, I was at 33 East Graham in the houses, but we would go to Martin Luther King Drive and the projects, and a lot of our people would leave those apartments for houses, you know, and we would still hang out with them because we all stayed in Hempstead and we all knew each other. But in the early 80s, it was volatile. They said, you know, why were y'all hanging out in the street? Why did you cut school? That was Reagan era. Y'all remember that? That was Reagan era, the 1980s in Hempstead. Matter of fact, I remember Ronald Reagan flying over Bromley Park. I was hanging out at Bromley Park by myself, waiting for somebody. You know me, probably high and a little drunk in the early 80s. And the U.S. Marine helicopters flew over Bromley Park, kind of low. I looked, I said, that's the Marine, that's the president. I had the presidential seal on it. I said, that's Reagan. He was going to the Special Olympics, I think at Mitchell Field. Yeah, I believe that's where it was, where they had the Special Olympics. He was going there. He was president then. Man, they just had that Rockefeller laws in New York. They had criminalized us. That's what happened. That's why so many of us were in jail. We don't want to be in jail. We don't want to be constrained. You know what I'm saying? We want freedom. We want justice. We want equality. We want to be supreme in our element, live in our nature. That's what our nature calls for. You know what I'm saying? So they design the laws to focus on us reacting to the lack of resources. They pull the resources from us. And what does that do? Hey, James Brown has said if you hungry, you got to eat. If you ain't got no job, you're going to hit them streets. You know, and that's what we did. They had Hemsptead as a school-to-prison pipeline. I know, I'm an alumni of that. I got Prospect School was okay, you know, because we had all our parents involved with the teachers. And Prospect School, all the elementary schools in Hempstead, if you look at those school photos in the 70s, in the early 80s, most of those teachers was black. Most of those teachers were black, and we knew them. They lived in the neighborhood. And they were respectful, and we related to them, and we respected them. In elementary school, if a child got out of hand, we'd be like, oh, what's wrong with him? He's going to get it from their mama, especially their dad. It's best that the mama come home and get to the school and get them and take them home. It would be your father come. Matter of fact, the fathers hardly came. It would be the mothers that would come to school when you get home to your father. If you were in the 70s, you had fathers. Yes, we had fathers. Extended family. Man, you would get it bad. You would get whooped to where you remembered it. Them thick leather belts, man, please. But in elementary school, we knew them. Then in middle school, that's when something happened. See, they hit us. It was all by design. They hit us in our puberty. They waited. You know, at 6 years old, did you know what you want to be in life? Did you know that black children, Native Black American children, as infants excel white children in development? Early when we're born, in them early stages like before 2, we excel them in advancement. We walk faster, talk faster, all that. That used to be well known. I forgot, I'll put the study for that, but I think that probably came to a close probably about 2 decades ago, because we were teaching on that in the 90s. I remember Minister Ava teaching on that. Child development, how you should breastfeed the child. Stop giving them that infant milk, that artificial stuff. These artificial, you know what I'm saying, synthetic stuff. Give them the natural stuff, because naturally we excel. By the age of 6, you know what you want to be in life. If you're nurtured properly, if you're in the right environment, if you're in a loving environment, a protected environment. See, but in this environment, what? The ghetto, the hood, this all engineered. It's all constricted. It's all scripted. It's all like, go for yourself. You at the bottom. You nothing. You should be lucky to associate with us. That was the 80s. Well, the 70s was the Rockefeller laws, which was heroin. If you got arrested in heroin and in jail, don't you know they extended that buck-breaking culture? That was in New York State Prison, especially in the South. In the South, the black male rape of younger, more vulnerable black males was institutionalized. That was the chain gangs. That was right after those, they raised them all black towns. Well, that was after chattel slavery too. When they started, if you did a crime, you could be enslaved. What do you think that this wicked man naturally did? He created laws that we can't read. If you get caught without these sort of papers in this area, it'll lock you up. Vagrancy laws, that was against us. I think it was the Mann Act later on, the turn of the century. As if you were caught with a white woman. Yes, that was laws against, all type of laws they had against us. Jim Crow era laws. that focused on us. They got us in them chain gangs, in them prisons. There were no prisons during slavery, early America. There were hardly any prisons. You got executed. You got hung, even white people. But they hung us ritualistically and sadistically. They do it because it's part of their nature for fear of genetic annihilation. So those prisons bloomed while they were arresting us. And they did slave labor. They sold you out to corporations. They sold you back to farms, to farmers, and industrialists, and mills, and mining companies, all type of stuff like that. And in the 70s, the prison culture of America was designed to promote rape culture. They would gang rape you. That's where that comes from. Young black men, fresh, they called you fresh fish. When you went into prison, they had a culture where you would be fighting each other. You see prize fighting. Oh, let me check on this toast. You see prize fighting. I might have to toast another piece. I'm up here getting distracted. Oh. Yeah, that's nice and toasted. Excellent. I'm going to get back to the extension of buck breaking after I prepare this toast. Yeah, I can talk. I'm just putting the cheeses on. I'm spreading the cheeses around evenly. And later on, I have another camera over there. I'll show you at a better angle. And I put a lot of mozzarella on here because that mozzarella, this is the moist mozzarella. Now, even in the toaster oven, this doesn't brown good. In that toaster oven over there, even on air fryer, mozzarella, and I just got to season with salt and pepper. Mozzarella, you can put your favorite cheese on here. If you like any other cheese, Gouda cheese, even funky cheese. You know, some people like funky cheese. You know, you're walking through the supermarket, you smell that cheese with the big block of cheese. You smell it as you're walking by. People drink it with wine and stuff. Let's just stay here. Yeah, you drink it with wine. And this is it. Now this is just going to heat on low, okay? And this is I got a cheese melt cover, and the bottom is just going to heat up, and that's going to slightly melt. A couple of minutes. I got to pay attention to it. Running my mouth. So that rape culture was developed in prison. It was a given. It was a way of life. And young men were raped. And they go back into society. What you going to do? You rape. If men don't heal and get counseling, we didn't have counseling back then. You go and rape your family members. You go rape your neighbors. You know, sexual assault. That went unhealed in our community. Whole bunch of trauma went unhealed. Well, that continued all the way until the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad went to prison. That was in 1945, before World War II. They locked him up because they were going to war with Japan. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a powerful man, even back then in the 40s, teaching. The president, Hoover, Herbert Hoover, ordered his arrest to get him off the street because he was teaching. Why should we fight for America wars when white people won't fight against us? They're fighting against us. That's where Muhammad Ali got that slogan from. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In the example, Master Father Muhammad went to jail for teaching our people and raising us up. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad started teaching Islam in the prison system. So that bloomed. They went to lock him up, and that was like putting a rabbit in a briar patch. He thrived. You couldn't touch him. It grew so much that rape culture in American jail systems had to come to an end because the Nation of Islam was so prevalent. Because we have a law. If you rape a Muslim, we're going to kill you. That's a death sentence. You rape a Muslim, we're going to kill you. And you know what we do? That's not even our command. We ask the victim, what do you want us to do to the person that violated you? That's justice. That's the way it should be. So it stopped, that rape culture. And our brother, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, touched on that, how the Nation of Islam was so prevalent at preventing rape because members joined onto the Nation of Islam, they would be secured, and protected. So it came to a halt. They had to stop the institutional model of that rape culture. They just stopped it. And then whatever came was naturally. That was in the 70s. Then what happened in the 80s? They had a new generation. That's us. That's Reagan. That's the putting crack cocaine in our communities. That's what happened. That's when Minister Farrakhan, right when he reemerged, he started going around the country and he accumulated in Zenith at Madison Square Garden. That was it. The enemy said, we got to we poison them with heroin. Let's do it with crack cocaine. And even now they're doing it with fentanyl. But the consequences is killing white folks. It's not killing us like they had planned. Today they have a new thing with us. Today is erasure, replacement, and keeping us nomadic, which is backfiring with our delineation movement. But back then, crack cocaine, I remember it. They simply devitalized us. They simply took the resources out of the community. They miseducated us. When I hit the middle school, we was uninspired. We still had some strong black men and women there. They were good brothers and sisters there at the middle school, but they couldn't tackle us. They couldn't reach us to the depth that they supposed to have. That was Mr. Bullock, Mr. Curry, beautiful man, good man. Who was that? The teacher, she used to point her finger. I was speaking to her out on Main Street a couple of years ago. Mrs. Gray, I believe it was. We knew these teachers. They related to us. She was from the South. All of them was from the South. And we related to each other. We looked up to them. We respected them. Yes, we did. We respected Mr. Not Mr. Bullock. How am I forgetting his name? Mr. Crawford. Mr. Crawford was about the size of Muhammad Ali. And he had the hands the size of Muhammad Ali. And we used to joke, he ain't hitting me with them big hands. Mr. Crawford, right. A good amount of teachers, even the security we were cool with. In the 80s, the curriculum was inferior. They used to teach us Christopher Columbus discovered America. I remember that at Prospect School, and Henry Hudson sailed up. They lied to us. They erased us, Native Black Americans, then. Native Black people who peopled the Western Hemisphere, Caucasians erased the peopling of the Western Hemisphere by black people. And you have to ask why. Out of all the things in history, why that? They erased the Atlanteans, the early civilization before the Nile Valley, before 6,000 years ago, before the Younger Dryas, 12,000 years ago. They erased that superior civilization. It didn't exist. You were monkeys, you're like apes. Global Tech is right there in Turkey. That was 12,000 years ago. We buried it because when the Younger Dryas was coming, the world cataclysmic change in that cycle had come 12,000 years ago. We knew it was coming, preparing for it. Went underground into the hollow earth. And what we emerged as re-peopling the planet again. That's why we cannot accept the Caucasians' history timeline of him saying, oh, you did this because I see it. I dug it up, so therefore it is. No, we have to reject that. We have to keep an open mind, and we have to keep an open study that things, we have to re-examine it. We have to study. We have to research. We have to get down in the mud. We got to go underwater. We got to go under the sand. We got to go under the rubble and go under the layers of earth and study things. What happened then? How does this affect that? The pole shift, things like that. All the earth recycling itself. How the effect did that have on what was before? Then we make a determination of how the history went. We have to do that. We have to reject his storyline because he lies naturally. Told us we were nothing. Told us we were niggers. You believe him? That you a nigger and a Negro? Many of us do. But in this day and time, after the pandemic, many of us don't. In the 80s, I went into the middle school. It was weak, man. They would teach the curriculum. I used to like math. So math is universal. In any language, math is the same, but not social studies. It's American white supremacy. American history is American white supremacy. Political science is American white supremacy. This is why they lie to you about math and they try to teach you a new math. They try to change math. Why? Because mathematics is Islam and Islam is mathematics. Islam is your nature. You can't change nature because it's the truth and it's love. What you cannot change, but the love and truth can change you. So, let me see how this is going. So, yeah, it's almost here. Another minute. This is going to be fast. Cheese toast. I'm going to grill that top in 2 minutes. So they didn't teach us the knowledge of self. They taught us the knowledge of white people discovering everything. Nothing happened until white folks did it. What was the 80s? Look at that. They would criminalize us, locking us up like hell, taking resources away from us, those community centers, culture centers, everything. They burned culture centers down. Los Angeles, that was an FBI stooge. Set that thing on fire. That was the man that betrayed the Black Panthers. Not O'Neill was on Fred Hampton, the other snake, and it was I call him a brother because he repented. His soul was hurt. He had an interview with Gil Noble, and he said he was working with the Black Panthers. I think it could have been Eldridge Cleaver, but he was over in Oakland, and Fred Hampton was in Chicago. This was in Oakland, the West Coast. He burnt that poetry center down. They destroyed them. They removed the community centers. Go look in a Jewish community. What's the center of the school? A community center. They revolve around community. They know that's where they can keep their heritage. And they know with us, if they keep us dependent on them and their miseducation, we'll become nomadic and dependent. And and how do they get away with it? We trust them. They miseducate us. They tell us we're nothing. All of a sudden, 80s, they started what? Not giving us tangibles. They were taking away things, our power, our businesses, our homes, and giving us ceremonial things, figuratively things, right? All them black politicians coming up, Jesse running for president. Dumb shit. The symbolism, all these black mayors and stuff. That way, when you said, oh, it's the first black, we were so happy. It put us to sleep. Mayor Young, only one who really was significant was Harold Washington. Beautiful brother. Okay. Oh, let me let y'all see this. This is ready. Now, this is going to be fast. Now, this part, I'm going to turn on the fan because I'm going to turn that heat up. And I'm going to grip. The bottom is nice and, oh, no. Good. Nice and toasted. I'm going to turn it up and I'm going to griddle that cheese. I'm going to toast it nice and good. All right? Yeah. In fact, I could probably do this with my hand. Let me turn on the fan, y'all. Oh, sorry. Turn that on low. In fact, I can turn this with my hand. There you go. And let that go a minute. You hear that? Sizzling. In fact, I don't even need the fan. It's nice and calm. That ain't bad. That's going to sizzle to golden brown. Just take a minute. You know, we were satisfied when we heard that the first black this, the first black that. That made you feel like something, like that you have achieved something. Here we people, the Western Hemisphere, built civilizations. Our pyramids and them broad pyramid structures and high civilization of the Olmecs, the Aztecs, the Mayas, that was us, mainly. And he hides it and said it was all a red man from India. And the original man, they murdered millions of us the way you can't find us no more. They targeted us and they denied us everything. We're the Olmecs. That's the originators of pyramid building in the Western Hemisphere, the Olmecs. You go look at those heads. That's black men. We balanced the earth. We built so much. We balanced the earth. We were the leaders. We were the navigators. We were the explorers. We were the conquerors, and we are a total 180-degree difference than the Caucasian coming out them caves of Europe. Oh, yeah, look at that. Yeah, this is looking real good. And the cheese don't stick because it's oil. You see that oil spitting out of there? Oh, blocked out there, sorry. Yeah, this ain't bad. I'm going to just peek under there, see how it looks. The mozzarella browns up nice. Okay. Oh, yeah. It's a little sticky. And this could dry roast a little for the rest. Oh, yeah. Or dry grill. without that cheese melt. The cheese melt holds in the moisture. Keeps that crust a little, crispy. Just got to really cool down though. And I got to do this fast because that cheese will slip off, It's a silicone. Let me see how it looks. Almost. Turn it up a little. Turn it up a little. And I'm just browning that cheese because the roll is already nice and crusty. Matter of fact, it probably went a little too much while I was talking, but it's good because the cheese melt held in the moisture. This is coming right along. We were happy to see Andrew Young. What was the one? Maynard in Atlanta. We were so happy. They were just getting a few contracts. They were gentrifying the city. They were misplacing us. Detroit, man, and it was just disgusting, man. They were misdeveloping us. They were creating all these opportunities for developers and new builders, and we would just get a few contracts and a few jobs, displacing us, gentrifying our areas. That's all they were doing, and they're still doing it to this day. And this is Climax in Hempstead. Wants to be a white, yuppie car. Oh, there we go. This is it. There we go. That's it. A little of it tilted to the side. But that's fine. Awesome. I want y'all to see this. Good. I just got to cool. Now, normally, I'm going to cut it in 4 pieces. Excuse me, y'all. I'll do that real fast. Oh, yeah. This family is griddle cheese toast. This is a griddle cheese toast. See that? Nice griddle cheese toast. It did it in a cheese melt. It held in the moisture. The bottom is a little crusty. I gotta wait till that cool down. It'll burn the roof of my mouth. But that's nice, and you can use any cheese you want. Put a little light seasoning on there, not too much. And it holds its own. Oh yeah, I don't need a fork for that. Yeah, but we were so happy to see us in movies, to see us on the screen, see us in television, symbolic things, ceremonial things. We were so happy, especially as politicians. Was that the first governor of Virginia? He was a Negro, didn't do anything for us, for black people, nothing for Native black people. And it accumulated with Jesse Jackson, just all symbolic. And we were so happy, we were so proud, it made us feel good. But look at us now, this is the consequences. Statistically, we're at the bottom of this civilization. Why? Because we go by their codes, we go by their laws. Our intra-trade with each other ain't on the books. We do that a lot. Those are hustling with each other. The brothers selling the bags, selling the jewelry, and selling home cooking, catering, and stuff like that. Side hustles. That's a good economy for us. That doesn't go on the book. That boosts it. That helps some of us. That's why we love the salons and the barbershops and our own businesses. That we lost a lot, and they got us. They made us think, oh, yeah, you have arrived. You have billionaires. Look at Jay-Z. Look at all those, back in the 80s, who was that? The brother at, I forgot his name. I think they killed him. The first, so-called first billionaire. We ain't the first. We the gods. We the original people. The Caucasian, he's the first. He's the invader. He's the man who was first for him. And what they need to put in the context is you are the first one, the first president of this, the first general manager of this. Even with baseball, it was that Roy Campanella, his racist ass, saying that black people don't have the mental capacity or facilities to manage baseball. Dumb shit. Oh, that's most of them sports. We excel and blew them up. And we have to put it into the context that this was the first one symbolically and ceremonially We are so proud of the first politician to do this, the first one to that, because we associated ourselves with being in that position. We associated that with being an accomplishment. The first billionaire. Remember that brother named the billionaire back in the 80s who died suddenly, along with Harold Washington? Yeah, that was suspicious. I forgot his name. He was part of PJ Reynolds, something like that, some company. And his daughter spoke of the suspicion of his murder. I'll get his name for you next live. That brother, see, he was the first billionaire. Now you have other billionaires, black billionaires, but they're not in the community. They have no community value. They are not employing black people in your community. They've gone out in some industry. I think that was Isaac Hayes III. He's a Democratic shill. He's a good brother at heart. I feel sorry for our people who think that these Democrats are doing us so good when they're doing us so bad. You know? And they do it with a passion, and they believe that even they fight for them. And so they exalt them. They gave him money, set him up to do some app and some other industry things. And when you look at all employees on this Negro's app, they're all white, they're all Caucasian, and they're not in the hood. He's not in the hood. They're not. They have no community value. Carter G. Woodson broke that down to us almost a century ago. He said a black baby staying at home, playing with his toys, with his friends, he come over, they trade toys, they trade candy, and they buy their candy from their grandmama. This is 100 years ago. My grandmother used to sell candy to us in North Carolina when we visited her as a business. And you buying that candy, trading your toys, that baby has more community value than a Negro who goes to college, leave the community, and is blessing some corporation with his slave labor, enslaving for them, making profits for them while he gets a little piece. He's not in the community. He has no community value. That's a brain drain. That's a resource drain. You know what I'm saying? That's a dream pipeline. That's a nightmare. We need community value. We need native black nationalism. All the billionaires, none of them are in the community. None of them, they do symbolic stuff back in the community. They're coming from maybe a sports team, maybe to clean up a park, maybe some blah, blah, blah. That's not community value. It doesn't build industry, doesn't build infrastructure, doesn't build generational wealth. But it builds up other communities while you symbolically look like you've made it. You're successful. You're good. This is all a plot. And in the early 80s embodied that. The early 80s in Hemsptead was a school to prison pipeline. I was in that class, the middle school, man, we didn't relate to nothing. We was rapping it. We was making our own music. In the 80s, we were so uninspired by them. And the middle school had a few good things. They had shop. Remember the wood shop? They had a printing press. We printed our own little cards. Well, the little business cards we printed were our hip hop groups in the middle school. That was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I think. I barely went to the middle school. You know, I went around the pods a few times. I was so into the street, we would cut school all the time. We knew that truant officer like family member. I forgot his name. He's a black man. Miss Washington, I think it was. He's a black man with the glasses and the beard. He lived in the community. Even the truant officer who was chasing us, he lived in the community. I think it was Cunningham, something like that. And he would be searching for us as we cut school, hanging out in the supermarket, going to places, you know, because we felt empowered. We felt free. Why? From being indoctrinated. Sitting in that middle school, you being told or feel that you're nothing, that you're good if you only do something ceremonially. You're a figurehead. You're like a crash dummy, an empty shell. Our nature was not being fed. Our senses were being satisfied. Our nature was not being fed. Our senses were being satisfied. And we, to this day, you clap for the wrong shit. These politicians giving you certificates and ceremonies and little parties and parades. Dumb shit. You do all this ceremonial stuff. The first black. That's what so excited you about Kamala. And we just crashed and burned that crash dummy. That cosplaying Indian crash dummy. We crashed and burned that effort just now to show you that you're not feeding into our spirit and our soul. You're satisfying our senses. And we have come to our senses because the knowledge of self has us on top. Let me eat some of this cheese toast before it get cold. Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's good. All praise is due to Allah. We were so satisfied with Obama. Obama tricked us, fooled us once. Remember George Bush bungled that term? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Even though, well, what type of person goes around fooling people? That's a trickster. That's a snake. That's a con. Somebody that tricks you should be condemned. Obama pulled it off on us in his first iteration. But the second iteration of Kamala, that Obama 2.0, we killed that. The Democratic Party is dead, pulling games on us. They're going to go and regroup. As we form our black party, we got to form the Freedmen's Party. That's all substance agenda, tangibles. A black agenda. That's what we need to abide by and stick to the rules and enforce it and make demands. You don't get to our demands, we deal with you differently. We enforce it. Strikes, boycotts. Put out this Christmas. We should boycott this Christmas. You're so happy to spend your money as the bottom statistic in the society. We're not at the bottom. If you were to group white people who delineate themselves, and German, they always brag about their roots. From Europe. They're German American. That's the largest group of Americans, I believe. German Americans are the largest white group. They're the most wickedest ones. Right behind the British. Those are the two wickedest people on the planet. The German and British American white people from Europe are the two wickedest people on this planet. They're the ones that did all this horrific stuff. And they had the brains organizing them elites. The elites, the chosen, those are the ones who felt destined by God to form secret societies to control the beastly Germans with the sophisticated, snobbish English to master us, and they just let loose on us violently and did what they did. They had the power to make a man. And what did they do? They chose to make a nigger and a Negro and a slave and break us and subdue us. Why? Because they can't beat us and they know they come from us. That's a hell of a dilemma to be in your subconscious. When it comes up to you, you realize, I'm not natural around here. I don't belong here. So let me master it, dominate it. Let me make others bow to me. Others admire me. That's the complex he has. Admire me, admire me, admire me. I'm going to force you to. You won't do it on your own? Let me break you economically. Here's some crumbs. Here's a few dollars. Twerk your ass off. I'll give you some more. Humiliate yourself some more. Matter of fact, I'm going to set you up. Since you're spiritual, I don't have no spirit. I don't have no soul. He watches you. He can time you based upon your spirituality, which you think is naivety. It's a spirituality, which is powerful when we're with each other and our soul and connected with our soul. That's our power. He tricks you into admiring him, wanting to be near him, thinking that you're getting closer to him. That's success. Talking like him is success. Emulating him, getting recognition from him, certificate, a degree here, a position here, the first this. And they start right in that school, miseducating us and indoctrinating us into giving us inferiority complexes. So I didn't go to middle school. And those of you who didn't, go look at those who submitted. Right now, they're the ones that's in these little puny positions thinking they better than you. They think, look, I conform. What's their biggest gripe with you if you rebel to this system because it's not feeding your nature, not feeding your soul? They say, you're lazy. they want you to, first of all, they want to shut you up. And they say you're lazy. They say, why don't you just go obey? You need to obey. You need to just do as I do. Look at me. See, this breaks up your self-esteem because you conform, you submit to American white supremacy and through its institutions. So when you go through the institution, you get praised and exalted in the institution within the constraint of the DNC, that Democratic Party. You're up in there, but your people are powerless. You powerless. You can't do nothing. And they always tell you that. That's why they don't give us reparations. That's why they don't give us anything. A hate crime bill. Nothing specific for us. Because it's designed against us systemically. It's designed against us. Individually, you can prosper. You can show out here. You can be in this position. So you feel good. So now you're confronted with someone whose soul says, man, I ain't relating to this. Some of us ready to go build our own community. We go and run our own business to separate ourselves. But many of us feel going off into a strange community that you have arrived and you have made it. So now you see your brother and sister that has a healthy self-image, love themselves, and don't have the economics you have. May even lower income, but more happy, more peaceful. And looking at you as you buck broken and you bend over to American white supremacy. You're admiring white folks, listening to their nasty, dirty, corny jokes in the corporations. Them jokes don't even be funny. And you sitting up there giggling and cackling to the joke because your job requires it. So we naturally rebel. So and when we rebel, what do they call us? Bad. Y'all breaking the law. What is the law? The law is to submit to American white supremacy. We don't. We want to be ourselves. So in the 80s, that's what happened. So they saw us, and what happened? What rose up in the 80s? The 5% nation. We naturally gravitated towards that. It taught us the knowledge of self. Especially when we heard Minister Farrakhan at Madison Square Garden. That was a time marker. That was a time marker. Minister Farrakhan at Madison Square Garden. Because up to that time, we had the symbolic politicians, and we thought they were good. Mayor Harold Washington was the exception. He loved our people. He wanted to empower our people. They killed him. He wanted to make millionaires and getting contracts. I think he set up to where if you was in the projects, you were first in line to get the contract for services. In the projects, for like the plumbing, the electrical, all those to security, all those contracts in the projects, those were prioritized for project residents. He did something like that. That's the way we have to move. I believe that was instituted by him, and someone else later developed it. But that was his spirit. David Dinkins made like $1 millionaire. Percy Sutton. May Allah be pleased with him. Percy Sutton is good, brother. 1 millionaire. Maynard Jackson, Andrew Young got us worse in Atlanta. In Atlanta, you think you arrived down there. You were only attracted by the lower cost of living. Now they raise the cost of living on you. They're going to overtax you and displace you out of there. Because we keep submitting to a system that's designed against our nature. So we naturally rebel, and that's why we were rebel. We were hard. We were walking around the street. We made up rap. That came out of black youth because we have that experience. That specifically happened to us, especially in jail. We was rapping in jail. I believe that modern hip-hop rap came out of New York prison. That's where I believe it came from, and then into the streets. We know it all came from the South. If you go and watch our brother Tariq Nasheed's Microphone Check, it showed the roots of hip-hop. It came from the South. The predecessors, the dancers, and the Pigmeat Martin, others like that. But I believe that hardcore street and that raw message that came from jail. Because look what was going on in jail. It was a school-to-prison pipeline. So we cut school. And at 299 Jackson, which is, I only got about 15 minutes, y'all. But I'll continue 299 Jackson next time because this whole series right here is just an overview. This is going to lead to a documentary about Hemsptead, about how we were lured in. We mainly became successful in the 70s. They always gauge you. They want to see what you're going to do while you're left to your own devices, to your own, standing on your own, rooted in yourself. Then they see how to destroy. That's why we built all them black magazines in the 80s. We had Ebony, we had Jet. That was back in the 40s and 50s. We had Johnson & Johnson products, hair products. We owned all that stuff, even BET. Yeah, I believe Bob Johnson bought BET in the 80s, but it was very weak. It was, BET. Yeah, that's right. Bob Johnson bought BET in the 80s, but it was, it was a little slow. You know what I'm saying? And then it blew up in the 90s, and a whole bunch of stuff. Them clothing lines, Cross Colors, and Fat Farm. Remember, Ron DMC was promoting Adidas. Because of our poor self-image and because of our materialism, and how we associate our value with brands. You know what I'm saying? So I'm this brand. I'm that Gucci and stuff like that. We even said that in rhymes. Audi 5000, Gucci, and what time is it? Gucci time, stuff like that. Brands, which is good. But I'm just saying that that's what we do. And how Ron DMC promoted Adidas. They even made a hit record, My Adidas. And later on, Russell Simmons was like, "Look, man, you can't be promoting them Adidas. Promote Fat Farm." We started producing our own Fat Farm, and what was the other one? His wife, Russell Simmons' wife, had a clothing line, and then FUBU, For Us By Us. I remember when Keith first started that line. Keith, good brother, he was the manager. Keith from FUBU. He was the manager, not Damon. That's on the Shark Tank, I think that is. Keith is one of the other brothers who was a founder of FUBU. He was a manager at 11 West 100th Street Apartments. I think that's called 111 West. That was the name of the apartments right across from Schomburg Plaza. I was doing appliance repair in the 90s. I was going up into Harlem in the late 80s, but in the 90s, Keith was a manager there. And I think Sister Crystal, another good sister, all them management and people in Harlem were dignified, honorable, conscious brothers and sisters. A lot. That's why I loved Harlem. I love even the brother of Solomon over at Schomburg Plaza. Good brother. And Brother Henry, I used to go to his church. The St. Mark's Church, beautiful church up in Harlem, right before they gentrified it. Keith was a manager there, and Keith was, and I was importing colognes and perfumes and jewelry from Egypt. And we was looking to do stuff from Ghana. I was doing self-business. I ain't like working for no Caucasian. I wanted to work for myself. You know what I'm saying? So we started, me and a good brother, we started importing art and clothing and jewelry and Nile Valley Egyptian themed goods from Egypt and selling them. Even them gold onyx, we get your name into a hieroglyph, your name into a cartouche, into hieroglyphs. Your English name, we could put it in hieroglyphs in a gold cartouche, and we would get that from Egypt. And you could order through us and we give it to you with other jewelry to accompany it, onyx, all type of different stuff. It was the 90s. We was black conscience. We knew we was the ancient Kemetic people, the Egyptians. Our nature told us that. We're the original black people here, and we're the original global explorers and navigators from the ancient times that people the planet. So we got the Nile Valley things, and I would take them to the apartment management people during my breaks. I would take them to the hair salons. I would take the products to different places and sell them, hustling as a side hustle to the appliance repair I was doing. As I was working on machines, during my break or something, I would say, "Here, I want you to get these products, check these out." So I would, Keith was in the management office with Sister Crystal, and I think he was trying to raise money for his shirt stand, because I showed him one of my shirts. It was it was a shirt with Hathor in it, the Egyptian goddess, And I started explaining to him the symbolism. He said, you know that hieroglyphs? I said a little and stuff, because he was trying to raise money for his shirts back then. This was the 90s and stuff. And he was probably asking Crystal or other people he knew, to raise that funds. And eventually they got the funds. And that was a self-business, because those businesses, we produce, we raise the money. We was grinding like that in the 90s. Why? We didn't want to work for these corporations, man. We know how you feel. Those corporations, we're buck broken on them. We don't want to feel like that. So we want to do for ourselves. And Brother Keith was very successful in that FUBU line. And I think LL Cool J did a commercial for them, or a commercial for some other brand, and he mentioned FUBU, promoting them and stuff. And that was all self-grinding, which we did, especially in Harlem. In Hempstead, we had self-businesses, black bookstores in the 80s. All of them gone. And doing for self, that's what our nature calls out for. So as I'm young in the middle school, 6th and 7th grade, and I want to go hang out. So we go hanging out. And what are we doing when we're hanging out? We talking trash. We going places. We traveling. We drinking. We smoking. We talking crap. We gambling. We over there on Union, behind the Greasy Spoon. All of the stores on Union at that time were all black on the Heights. All of those stores, when I was in middle school, were all black at one point. And then others, it had transitioned to others. So we wanted to be independent. That's freedom. You know what I'm saying? You feel empowered, setting your own hours, making a little money, doing something for yourself, interacting with your own people. Ain't got to deal with these snobbish ass white people. Why? They have a savior complex. They have a God complex. The savior's complex, they want you to admire them for the good work they're doing. You suffering, they got you suffering. So now they're offering you money to end your suffering, but the price for that money is grovel at my feet for it. So we don't want to do that. And in school, they were preparing us for that. That's why that school was a school to prison pipeline, and it still is. We filling up the jails then, we filling them up now. Matter of fact, they done filled them up so much, they privatized them. They've been investing all right. Nassau County Jail during the 80s, which I was a part of, I think the state, the federal government threatened to sue them. It was something like $1 million a day, something like that, outrageous, for every inmate overcrowded. You know what they were doing? They were forcing them to take taxpayer funds to expand the jails, and they did. I was in Nassau County Jail a few times. I was in Westbury Shelter. Yeah, that was the first place I went, Shelter. I told you, the audio cut out when I was at 299 Jackson, when I was talking about me, Pookie, and Isaac, and Mike, and Johnny, and there was a few of us that were very young. Just wow, we was all over the place in the tracksuits, the Kango hats, and Adidas, and we was all over the place, hanging out, especially on terrace, going into A&S and stuff, and stealing and stuff, and doing whatever we wanted to do, man. And that teaching and lifestyle that we wanted, spoken to our nature. So the schools were like, look, train yourself to get a job, train yourself to memorize this curriculum. They want you to memorize it. That's all test taking is. They test taking just an indicator of how much you practice for test taking. It wasn't for application. It wasn't for in the community. It wasn't for you to raise money for your business. It wasn't for you to expand your current business. It wasn't for you to learn how to cook for yourself, for your catering business. It wasn't for that. It was for you to just be a bot, a stupid robot, to where you go out into a corporation and serve that corporation. That was the goal, to make you a dumbed down, literally crash dummy, just a bot, just to serve some corporation. And when a white man walk around you, you act like you're working. When he leave, you could talk about him and goof off towards each other. But that's a miserable life. and they were preparing us for a miserable life. And we rejected that. So as we was hanging out, it's almost time for me to finish up, y'all. 5 more minutes. I'll wrap this up. And because this is an overview of the mentality we went through, and we were condemned for actually doing good. Us doing good was being independent, but they had a trap in it. You go out and get your own money. Where's your own money? They putting drugs in the community. They putting guns in the community. We had guns, just shotguns. Our families had shotguns and stuff like that. But them little pistols was reserved for us to go at each other. And the drugs were put on us. They were intentionally placed amongst us. And now we fighting each other. And initially, weed in Hempstead in the early 80s, was cheap as hell. Weed was very inexpensive. A dime bag meant a dime bag. You go down to Bedell, you knock on the door, Rastafarian brother, he see who you is, know who you are. He said, you put your $10 in, and he stuff a big old manila envelope full of weed in it, some funky smelly weed, and you would roll 10 nice joints out of that. $10 for 10 joints in the early 80s you would get on Bedell. And then later on the Heights, we started setting up, selling weed. Now, look at us selling this stuff. We feel so empowered. We feel like it's the right thing to do. Why? Because it's getting money. Without any harassment, without you having to bow to anybody. You can relax, be yourself, show out. You can go gamble, you can go drink as you're sitting up there. So it was negative, but it was empowering. But it was the empowerment of us that they put in a negative way. So that if we went to go empower ourselves, you got to do it this way, in that negative sense. That lifestyle sent a lot of brothers into rap. That's what started having them rapping. They started rapping about that lifestyle. See, look, I can make money off rap instead of sitting out here fighting this fool on the corner for control of this corner of who to sell the drugs to. That's what we did on Terrace, in Union, in Stewart. And I never went and sold anything on South Franklin or on Parkside, but those were other popular areas. Those were like the main spots in Hempstead, selling drugs. Right, that was South Franklin, Parkside, Yellow Park, and Union on the Heights, Stewart, Bedell, mainly Bedell and Terrace. Those were the main spots. Other smart people would sell to their friends in their house. Their friends would come by back then, the pager, they would page them, they would come pick up their stuff if they were smart. But the street hustlers, we were wild. You know, we were showing out, and the police were watching us the whole time. It was a game. It was a setup. They would poison those drugs, and once we got the drugs and we started selling those drugs, and I started at an early age because we could sell the drugs. If we did, we could use some of the drugs ourselves. Now, after a while, you're starting to get addicted. You're starting to use drugs. Your tolerance grows. So now you have to use drugs to get the same high that you used to get earlier. In order for you to get the same high that you had a month ago, you have to use more. So now you're using more drugs and you're selling the same thing. You say, well, I need some more. So you start dipping in the bag, taking a little cocaine out, putting junk in there. That's why the white man called drugs, heroin, junk. So his people wouldn't use it because they associated junk with us in the street. With him, you can go behind closed doors. They do it behind closed door. We had an open air market. That's why our communities are open to this day. Just open. Anybody can do what they do. That village board, the school board. Just keep it open. Anybody can come in and do what they want. You know, that's because you got these punks and these chumps selling us out like that. So we taking the drugs and we putting junk in there and we selling it to you. And now you smoking junk, sniffing junk. You thinking it's good, but you feeding my addiction. I'm an addict now. And now I got to go. Now, once I get caught doing that, the other supplier that's supplying you, you're going to start shorting on him. And then you owe him money. You're running from him. Different crazy stuff like that. So it was a sick game and a setup. Then they start snitching on each other. Then they start fighting and killing each other over territory and stuff like that. It was all set up. It was all set up. And I was a part of that in a little way because I was hardly on the street. I was locked up. I was in and out of jail from that middle school when that was from 79. That was before Rappers Alive. I hit the middle school like it had to have been that 79, I think it was, because we were doing raps and making tapes. Don't you know we was in the art class? Who was that? Randy, your mom's, Pam, Stiff. We was in that same class. She used to bring mixtapes from the folks she was hanging out with, I think in Roosevelt and Queens. And who was that? John Alfred. He's the first brother I know who did the human beatbox. John Alfred. We was in art class. Me, Barlow, John Alfred, Eddie, a whole bunch of us in there having a good time. Gene Grant. We in the art class. And we'd be hitting the beat on the table. And then John Alfred, he would do the human beatbox with Bra. Remember Bra? Boom. He would do that beatbox with his mouth. And that was the first time I heard the beatbox. That was like, right, that was before Rappers of the Light came out. Then, I think it was that summer 79, that's when all the records came out. All the records started coming out. And we started listening to them. And back then, the Sugar Hill Gang, we suspected that something wasn't right about them. But they were a hit, but the common person liked them. But those of us on the street, we liked the more hardcore rappers. Like the Cold Crush Brothers. They were very gangster. Even you could tell by the name. Look, Sugar Hill Gang. And the Furious Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. The Supreme Team. And, you know, these were more hardcore. And the more street hardcore rappers are the ones that we in the street were attracted to. Those of us who were starting to get wild, b-boying and stuff. Getting into fighting and all these crazy things, and it's a whole bunch of stuff we did. You know, we were attracted to them, so we started modeling them. And that was right in art class, where who was that? Liz was in that class. Liz, tell a whole bunch of us. Was that Patricia Kelly? No. No, Rachel, I think Hightower. It was a lot of us in that art class. And that art teacher would let us be creative. You know, the art teacher would let us do, you know, extra things. Those creative teachers, like in music class and stuff, you had a free license to expand yourself. You know what I'm saying? You felt good doing that. So what would we do? We'd be rapping. We'd be making up stuff. But in the lunchroom, they would stop you. If you do that in the lunchroom, you do that, and you couldn't do it in math class. You couldn't do it in social science. But in that art class, that's where we started rapping, and we started, you know, sharing each other's tapes and listening to each other's styles and really expressing ourselves. And that was in middle school. And now we felt good in art class, but when you go into the other classes, man, you just sitting there twitching in your seat, sitting in the back of the class. You know? Who sits in the front of the class? That's somebody that's submissive. They all eyes, they all open. But in the back of the class, you lounged out, doing something else, fiddling, writing notes, throwing paper planes, shooting spitballs, crazy stuff. That was middle school. If you're lucky, you didn't get caught. In middle school, you and Mr. Crawford and Mr. Curry. Yeah, they were real intimidated. They were intimidated. And Mr. Crawford, especially Mr. Curry, you know, was cool. But he would lay there, he would put his foot down if he had to. Yeah, he's a beautiful man. May Allah be pleased with him, Mr. Curry. And so, yeah, I'm wrapping this up in 2 minutes, y'all. So that's the early 80s, and I just want to set the mindset of why we went into the street, why we started getting wild. And then I want to show the influence of the 5% Nation and then Minister Farrakhan, how they actually started teaching us and training us and reaching into our spirit. I think one of the most relative videos I've seen of Minister Farrakhan. I listened to the audios a lot because they were less expensive. I didn't have the money to buy the videos back then. Minister Farrakhan videotape in the 80s was $30. It was a lot of money back then. So we would get our money together and one person would buy it and we would make copies and share it. listen to minister. But the audios we would buy ourselves in the 80s. But the one video I saw of him was the voice of one crying in the wilderness. He said that at the Final Call building in Chicago, that reached into my soul. Then he was teaching on Master Father Muhammad, teaching our root. Minister Farrakhan was on fire. And that fire is what lit us up. And that's because, you know, you hear many voices. Some of them fake. Look at Obama. That's a fake voice. That's an artificial voice. His cadence is fake. Everything is constricted. Everything is artificial. He has to read through a teleprompter. But the minister, he reached into our soul. We should invite, and he would reach us so deeply, and if it changed us, and which it did, them teaching changed us, the 5% teachings, Minister Farrakhan, it changed us so much, we stopped smoking and drinking and eating pork and stuff. I'm fasting now. That discipline comes from there. Minister Farrakhan would give examples, and he would break down the science in it. But more importantly, was he was a clarion. He was like the A-tone. He was that one in, music class, when all the instruments are together and you playing off and stuff, then somebody sets the A-tone and everybody goes by that same tone, and you all later on go by the metronome, the click, 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 and you all go together. Minister Farrakhan was like that. He was one that you listened to and you tune yourself into him. And we related to that, but before him, what seeded us, what prepared us, was Malcolm X. Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X. I was in Lincoln Hall. I took that book out the library, not Lincoln Hall, Camp Sumter, minimum security. Literally, it was a slave camp. It was an open, I call it a country club, an experiment. They were experimenting on us. That was the last time I was in jail. Camp Summit, then Queens work release. Then I disconnected again, y'all. I got to wrap this up. This is 10:42. Let me wrap this up, family. All right, I'm leaving off at the minister reaching out to us and how Malcolm preluded that, the autobiography of Malcolm X. We related to Malcolm, hanging out in the street. He went to jail, changed his life around. And then even through the controversy, we had so much love for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan. We were hurt with the relationship between Malcolm and, Elijah and Farrakhan. So that in Imam Muhammad, Muhammad, he's in relationship to that too. In the 80s, New York was on fire in consciousness. But the minister rose up out of that. But in the street, Malcolm was the man, the legend of Malcolm. It was for real. And when I walked through Harlem in the 80s, and being trained in Harlem in the 90s, there was many followers of Malcolm still in Harlem. And they loved the nation, they loved everything. They were just caught up in that controversy of the division between Malcolm and Elijah. That became deadly. You had to be careful how you spoke about that. Some people got hurt, some people died. It's very controversial, which I got to get to at a later time, because I came in the aftermath of that. That was in the 80s. That's 20 years after Malcolm's assassination, where he still loved in the community, still respected. And even though the enemy tried to use it, promoting the autobiography and putting him above everything else, it backfired, because when we read him and we got into the details, he said, man, this is a process that we all could go through, and how he was so magnificent in it. And so most of us, we saw through that, and because we use love, and Minister Farrakhan is the personification of love, so we naturally drew to him. But that was a street in the 80s. The early 80s, I still got to get back to this. I should do it in a couple of days maybe, because you see they messing with the connection. This is my phone. I don't even have the Wi-Fi on, and it's going down. All right, family. Let me read some comments real fast. Maybe I can get to the comments here. Let me read through some comments, then I'll finish up. All right. Oh, I need my reading glass for this. Oh, Brother Sean. How are you? Who is it? Nicole? Oh, I'm fine, my sister Nikki. How are you? I got to go see Rump again. Yeah. I teach my kids the history. Sean Lawrence all the time. That's right. Praise be to Allah, brother. That's right. Each one teach one. You know the teaching. Brother Sean, we soldiered together, trained together. Brother Sean come from the 5% Nation. And into the NOI, FOI. Yes, we are. We are FOI, do or die, brother. Who is this? Dickie McClendon, peace, beloved. Peace unto you. May Allah give peace and grace to all of us. Experimenting facts. That's right, Brother Sean. You know it, beloved. You and Brother Sean were the strongest brothers because you had knowledge yourself before you came in. A lot of us from the 5% Nation have that prerequisite knowledge that prepared us for the discipline of coming in the nation to expand it on. We are the leaders of the new generation, and we're going to make it all happen. Don't you know that the Father Allah said the 5%ers who left the mosque would return as supreme ministers? And that happened in New York. A lot of ministers, the most successful ministers in New York, I believe Dr. Ava was in the 5%ers. I believe so, out of New York. If I'm not mistaken, let me get that correct. May Allah be pleased with her. She an angel. She knows. She spanked me now if I'm wrong. And Brother Abdul Hafiz Muhammad, he came from the 5% Nation. Whole bunch of brothers. Brother Henry and quite a few brothers from the 5% Nation later on became very successful ministers and very unique ministers. Why? Because the 5%ers teach you to study them lessons, memorize them lessons. Which early on I did. That was at Lincoln Hall. But once I got out and hit them streets, I wasn't into that studying. I was wild. So discipline is the key. Discipline and vision and focus. All right, family, next week I'll get back to the early 80s again, the street versus Islam, you know, that challenge and the attraction that the street had on us as opposed to conformity in society. You know, how the conformists who are exalted in the society conformists, you conform, you submit to corporations. Yeah, this position and that position, how these are exalted as the good and examples for us, how they're the failures in the community. And those of us who are the rebellious, so it said, this, look, my nature ain't telling me this. I need more. Something else, something got to get deeper in me that touches to my soul and my spirit that tells me that this is excellence. Me doing for self, the purification, the process and the trials and the journey. Accepting your own and being yourself is the goal. The end to paradise, to lead to paradise, to take us there. All right, family, I'll leave you as I greeted you in the ancient Arabic words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Peace unto you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. It's very late. Have a good week. It's going to be cold. But Allah got us through. Peace.